With gun violence running rampant in Chicago, despite or perhaps because of one of the country's most stringent anti-gun laws, an Illinois state representative from the city's south side has called for the deployment of National Guard troops on the city's streets. Representative Monique Davis, who is serving her 13th term in the state legislature, has called for state troopers and National Guardsmen to come to Chicago and work with our mayor, Rahm Emanuel, to provide safety for the children and for all who walk in Chicago. She has also requested that Illinois Governor Pat Quinn set up a task force to guide the behavior of the National Guard. We don't want them to have us fearing them also. We want them here for our safety and protection.
A new Android app called GeoGun Marker would allow anti-gun activists to mark the exact location of people they regard as irresponsible gun owners. The Tattleware app was created by Brett Stahlbaum, a lecturer at the University of California, San Diego, through the Walking Tools Laboratory and is available through the Google Play Android Marketplace. The product's description claims that it is intended to allow parents and community members to mark or geolocate sites associated with potentially unsafe guns and gun owners. The group's website, gungeomarker.org, directs people with questions about the app to call the project's offices in Baton Rouge.
Just look at what's happened here. Now, are they going towards registration in the United States? Well, according to the Washington Post, the Obama administration is considering a national database of all firearms in the U.S. to, quote, track the movements and sale of weapons, unquote. And if such a database comes to fruition, it will lead to confiscation. Last year, we ended our national long gun registry here in Canada. It was a national database of every rifle and shotgun in the country that was supposed to help police, well, track the movement and sale of weapons. Now, when it was introduced 20 years ago, critics said, hold on. If we register the firearms, they're going to be confiscated. And that criticism was just dismissed. It was ridiculed. Yet that's what was happening right up until the long gun registry was dismantled. As recently as last winter, law-abiding gun owners who had complied with the registry were having their rifles confiscated. In late 2011, hundreds, if not thousands of people who had legally purchased the Army Jaeger AP-80, a .22 caliber variant of the AK-47, were informed that their rifles had been deemed illegal and must be surrendered. The letter read, "You are required by law to return your firearm registration certificates without delay, either by mail to the address shown in the top left corner of this page or in person to a peace officer or firearms officers. You have 30 days to deliver your firearm to a peace officer, firearms officer, or chief firearms officer, or to otherwise lawfully dispose of them." That was sent out by the Canadian Firearms Centre. Now, of course, confiscation of firearms could just be the start of it all. Confiscations of homes and cars could also head down to the United States. Former Marine Joshua Boston recently wrote a scathing response to California Senator Dianne Feinstein's gun control proposal, saying that he would not register his guns. Here's part of that letter. He said, "I am the man who fought for my country. I am the man who learned. I am an American. You will not tell me that I must register my semi-automatic AR-15 because of the actions of some evil man." Joshua Boston, Corporal, United States Marine Corps. Well, if he goes through with that, and the United States goes through with setting up a national registry, it could cost him everything. Don't believe me? Look at Bruce Montague. He's a gunsmith from Dryden, Ontario, and he faces the possibility of having his home seized for failure to register his firearms. Montague made a decision, a purely political decision, not to register or to let his registries lapse. He wanted to challenge the constitutionality of Canada's National Gun Registry. When his constitutional challenge failed and Montague was convicted, the government of Ontario moved to seize his home under their proceeds of crime legislation. They were treating what was essentially a paperwork criminal as if it were a drug lord. That's the kind of person the proceeds of crime law is intended to prosecute. Now, if the United States follows Canada's lead in registering all guns, putting them into a national database, then confiscation of rifles and shotguns won't be far behind.
In 2011, there were some 600,000 legal gun sales in this state, and the industry is very adept at exploiting the fine print. find ways to get around the letter of the law. The time is now to close those loopholes in the circulation, in the regulation, and in the education relating to guns and to gun ownership, and tighten restrictions on loan guns. Senator Leno, who unfortunately cannot be here today, for his efforts to strengthen the armed prohibited person system, to collect those guns that are in the wrong hands. Senator De Leon for his work to make sure that background checks required for guns also apply to ammunition. Senator Jackson for her measure to update our gun laws, to close a loophole in the current ban against shotguns with revolving cylinders. Senator Corbett for her leadership. These guns and these ammo clips are all legal under California law.
World leaders speaking for the second day at the United Nations General Assembly. And on the agenda today, a controversial firearms treaty signed by Secretary of State John Kerry. Opponents worried it could have a chilling effect on our gun rights in our own country.